everyone, and welcome back to another Privacy International podcast from our Reproductive Rights and Privacy Project. I am Sarah Nelson, and I lead the Reproductive Rights Project here at PI. Today, we're speaking with Paz Peña, who is an independent consultant working at the intersection of gender, technology, and human rights. Paz is based in Chile, and we spoke about data exploitation in the provision of sexual and reproductive rights in the country. So I hope you enjoy this conversation with Paz. Could you introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Paz Peña. I'm an independent consultant. I work in the intersections between technology, gender, and human rights.
For the work that you did with PI, it was focused on reproductive rights in Chile. And I was wondering if you could give us sort of an overview of the landscape of reproductive rights in the country.
Sure. We have to understand that, like many countries in Latin America, Chile used to have a very powerful presence of the Catholic Church. You know, the most conservative side of the Catholic Church has been part of the Chilean elite from years, you know. But after the Pinochet dictatorship and, you know, process of democratization, globalization, and of course, you know, the whole sexual abuse scandals within the Catholic Church, started a process of secularization, no? But now, despite Chile is one of the least religious countries in the region, conservatives still have, you know, an enormous influence in political parties, study centers, universities, and of course, civil society. So I will say that sexual and reproductive rights is one of their main battlefields, I will say, no? So, for example, in terms of abortion, until September 2017, Chile was one of the few countries in the whole world that did not permit, you know, abortion under any circumstances. Now, the current law only allows abortion on 3 grounds: when a woman's life is in danger, when there are fetal anomalies incompatible with life, and when the pregnancy is the result of rape. The enforcement of the law has been very difficult process. This is because, as local feminists say, and I really like this, you can end penalization of abortion, but the social punishment for abortion is still present, no? So, for example, one of the most important hurdles for women to get an abortion in public hospitals and private clinics is that doctors acting as individuals and private clinics acting as institutions can be conscientious objectors. For example, nearly 50% of all medical providers in Chile objects to providing abortions after rape. So beyond these 3 circumstances, women that want to have an abortion have, you know, 2 options. One, get the after-day pill, which you can get without a prescription in pharmacies. But if you go to the private system, the price could be super high, no, for middle-class women. And if you go to a public hospital, you still have this, you know, influence of, you know, around abortion and, you know, that social punishment. So women don't prefer to go to public hospital many times. So the other problem is that there is a black market, especially on the internet, selling after-day pills, and many times those after-day pills are fake. And you have to add that, of course, there's a lot of misinformation about the after-day pill. We can see this on our research. You know, conservatives are saying that after-day pill, you know, is bad for women, it doesn't work, you know, etc., etc. And the other option that women have to get an abortion is, you know, get an illegal abortion with a doctor in a clinic, which is, of course, highly expensive, and because it's illegal, is, you know, highly dangerous. In terms of contraception, in Chile there is clear national policy regarding access to contraceptive methods for women. It's a long tradition. However, I would say that some hurdles still remain. For women who go to private system, the price for contraceptive methods is super high. And of course, this affect directly young women that doesn't earn much money. And for women to go to public hospitals, contraceptives are free, but there's still a lack of, information in terms of how to use them, what method is best for each case, etc., etc. And I will say finally that the lack of sexual education is another crucial barrier in Chile to get a non-biased reproductive health information. To date, Chile does not have a comprehensive educational policy on sexuality, affectivity, and of course gender. However, nowadays a bill is being discussed in the Congress, but again, this bill has also been the target of disinformation campaigns on the internet by conservative sectors, which again, you can see on our report. So I will say basically that there are three factors, in this landscape. First, the political pressure by conservatives, the lack of education and reliable information provided by the state. And of course, as market is super important. Here in Chile, we are a very neoliberal country. Prices are super high for contraceptive methods, for example.
My next question was around the different forms of technology that your research has shown is kind of being integrated within reproductive health care, and the organizations behind that technology. You in the research that we did, you mentioned quite a few: Citizen Go and Population Research Institute and FEM and the different websites. And so I was wondering, could you just talk through a few of those examples that you put into the research?
Sure. So in this research, we have found two ways on how big data could be collected and exploited by conservative organizations to hurdle access to information on sexual and reproductive rights. One is utilizing data to enhance campaigns in social media, and the other one is designing and using technologies to erode sexual and reproductive rights. So in the case of exploiting data to enhance campaigns in social media, we see two examples. One is the El Bus de la Libertad, which is the Freedom Bus, which is an initiative that was born in Spain with the conservative organization Citizen Go, and which is basically a bus that travels around the city with anti-abortion and anti-gender messages. This offline action, of course, has a robust, online presence. Photos and comments on the the bus messages produce thousands of interactions on social networks. So it's an offline action, but also the online component is very, very important. So the Freedom Bus had an appearance in Chile back in 2017. And at the time, public opinion was discussing abortion and also the gender identity law here in Chile. So this Chilean bus received support from the Population Research Institute, PRI, which is an international organization based in the US with Christian and Catholic inspiration. The PRI also has a network, a global network of pro-life groups in over 80 countries. And on their website, they actually recognize that they advise organizations to strengthen their actions both in mass events and, of course, social networks. So the PRI and the organization that originally created the Freedom Bus, Citizen Go, work together to provide trainings to conservative organizations around the world on the strategic use of data and social media. And they even organize a summer camp especially for these topics in Italy back in 2018, the Chilean bus has probably followed, all those teachings of the PRI and Citizen Go. And they were very, very successful. The local media, the most important local media in Chile, says that the Freedom Bus was the most important communicational action of the conservative agenda in Chile. So they were big, and of course, social media was super, super important for that. A second case that we find out is a website called embarazoinesperado.cl. This website has a web chat and a hotline for women seeking information about abortions in Chile. This website was detected actually by local feminists who, received screenshots of this website when it appeared as an ad on Instagram. So feminist groups were super worried about embarazoinesperado.cl because nobody knew until now who was behind that initiative. No, if you go to the website, there's no specific information on that. So in this research, we were able to establish that Embarazo Inesperado has ties with Red por la Vida y la Familia, which is a network of 27 organizations from Chile. This network seeks to promote, conservative values, defend human life and, family, etc. And embarazoinesperado.cl also has a major influence, which is embarazoinesperado.com, which also provides a web chat. It's almost the same website, no? Provides a web chat and a hotline for women seeking information on abortions in Latin America. And actually, embarazoinesperado.com has a very strong presence in Argentina, for example. So embarazoinesperado.com is an initiative of the Latin American network of Centros de Ayuda para la Mujer, or CAMS, which means basically women's aid centers. And CAMS have, a high presence in countries of the continent, including, of course, Chile. These centers were exported, and this is very interesting. These centers were exported to Latin America back in the 70s from the United States, inspired by the called crisis pregnancy centers, which were a way of, stimulating pro-life activism in the United States, back in the 70s. So the CAM network also receives funds from several conservative donors, including, of course, Heartbeats International. And because of previous research of Previous International, we know that Heartbeats International is empowering conservative organizations to use, big data to increase their impact. So in the case of the Chilean chapter of Embarazo Inesperado, we can say that they actually use advertising on Instagram. So in a way, they use big data to target, their audience. But it's not clear, however, if this use of big data is directly, influenced by Heartbeats International through, the CAMP network, or is the result of, the local marketing company that works with them, which the name is En Tus Zapatos. It's not clear who is, behind that strategic use of social networks, but you can see clearly that they use social networks to target their audiences. And this use of big data is super troubling. The organization behind Embarazo Inesperado is hidden. The only reason for hiding this necessary information is because what they really seek is to trick women. No, they don't provide reliable information on abortion. On the contrary, they look to, prevent women and girls from exercising their sexual and reproductive rights. And the use of big data and social media is a perfect way, to amplify in a way their anti-women's right agenda, if you can say, no? And finally, the case of design and use of technology to prevent women's sexual and reproductive rights. We find in that line the case of FEM app. The FEM app is a mobile application developed by FEM Foundation, which means Fertility Education and Medical Management, which was founded by the Chilean doctor Mrs. Pilar Vigil. This is a big name here in this research. Well, this application is very popular. In the world has at least, I think, 400,000 users and seeks to control fertility periods through collecting data on sexual and menstrual cycles of women. Last year, which is very interesting, The Guardian reported that this application recommends its users to abandon contraceptive methods and follow the natural methods. They also reported that they received funding from anti-abortion groups such as the Chiaroscuro Foundation, which is also based in the US. So an initiative called Teen Star also promotes the use of FEM app. Teen Star is an educational initiative that started in the US again and promotes abstinence, at the expense of other viable alternatives such as hormonal contraception. Their curriculum, Teen Star curriculum, is present in 36 countries, including Chile, of course. And Teen Star in Chile was founded by the creator of FEM app, the Chilean Dr. Mrs. Pilar Vigil. So many things are super worrisome here with FEM app. First, the typical stuff, the use of sensitive data of women. So according to their privacy policy, the sensitive data could be used for advertising. They also promised that the woman can use the app with anonymity, which is not quite real when you use the app in your phone. Another troubling aspect is whether Teen Star promotes FEM app in countries where they provide educational programs to young women and girls. This could be even more thorny in the case of Chile, as the Minister of Education in Chile acknowledges Teen Star as a sexual program. But to me, what it seems to be more relevant for this research is how this app collects fertility data for medical research. In fact, if you review their terms of use in Spanish, FEM warns users that they may disclose health information provided by users to FEM researchers and external researchers. So this is, of course, a question of personal data, but also is a question of ethics, I think, in research. The question that it keeps appearing in my mind is, can women give their sensitive information to studies they don't even know what goals are pursuing? Of course, this question is even more relevant in the case when you see that this data is used to justify some sort of anti-women's agenda, no? So yes, these are basically the three main things that we have find in this research.
Yeah, I thought that was a really interesting point that you made in the report of, can people actually consent to how their information is being used when they don't understand, understandably don't understand how the company behind it may be using their information to justify a complete sort of advocacy campaign.
Absolutely, and there's a lot of ethical protocols, in research and in medical research, and I think, I'm not an expert on that, but I think in the case of FEM app, this way to consent to give information to other researchers is not even ethical at all, no? And I think it's super worrisome because you are financing in a way a research that is tricking women, So I think it's very, very, very interesting to see that point here, not only the privacy and data protection thing.
What has been the reaction to that sort of finding in Chile? I'm sure that the Guardian reporting of the FEM app and the connection to that Chilean doctor was quite shocking in the country. And I was wondering, how have people responded to that?
Yes, it was shocking in a way that we live in a conservative society, and we know that some doctors, especially because of the abortion law, some doctors are very reluctant to women's rights, which is very disappointing for everyone. No, so it was not a surprise in a way to see Chilean doctors, working in some sort of apps. But actually, at the time, we didn't know that Pilar Vigil was so involved. In the Guardian report, they say that there are 2 Chilean doctors working in FEMAP, but they don't really make the point that they are the creators of the FEMAP and the creators of multiple research institutes around the FEMAP. No, so this research was able to establish that actually they are the same person. No, they are the same institution. The FEMAP, the research centers that are behind the FEMAP, TeamStar, etc., etc. The whole ecosystem around a FEMAP is actually based super near my house, in a near, neighborhood. No, they also share the same address, actually. No, so I think it's quite shocking now, showing this research to local feminists to say, this is more complex than we thought. Reading the Guardian report, no, this is more about ecosystem that is working to get information from women to basically make anti-gender research.
And also, I was really interested in what you said in the report around the Teen Star curriculum being used in schools. And could you talk more about that? How does that actually happen, that program has been used in schools in the country?
So you have to understand before that we live in a neoliberal system where everything is about, the private sector working in public things. No, so in the case of education, Chile has one of the most neoliberal system. No, so the state provides a lot of or gives a lot of opportunities to private sector to work in educational things, no, in any aspect of educational things. So, for example, Teen Star is this program, this private program, which, as I said before, has an enormous influence from US, with this conservative influence from the US. And basically what they do is provide a private program of educational on sexual education. No, so in Chile, any school, even public schools can get that programs. No, they pay sometimes, maybe sometimes they are free. It doesn't matter. They are free to do whatever they want. And if they are recognized or acknowledged by the minister, they have some sort of, institutional symbol. They say, oh, this is serious. This is not just someone given an educational program. They have the support of the Minister of Education. So they just use it. So this is why it's super troubling here in Chile, because the Minister of Education, by the way, now they are super conservatives. They're saying you can give this, you can provide this program of sexual education to your, students. It's okay. But when you are seeing that, actually, what they are looking for is to provide information against contraceptive methods, or hormonal contraceptive methods, etc., etc. The thing is, it's not so clear what were the reasons behind the Minister of Education to provide acknowledgement to this program, because you can see that it's not quite quite good for reproductive rights for women.
Teen Star, and they promote that curriculum, which is abstinence only, if I understand that correctly, kind of
Yes.
globally.
Yes, it's like the most conservative things. You can go to the web page and you can see that basically they are saying that the natural method is the method, like counting days and everything. But which is something that many feminists have seen here, that even they have a very conservative way to see reproductive rights, they try to provide a more progressive messages. Behind there's a super conservative organization, but to, I don't know, to have the trust of women, they try to have a more progressive, some sort of language, which you can see in Teen Star. They are like, oh, we're super young, we're super free, that kind of, trying to be close, to be feminist and everything. And then basically they provide a super restrictive agenda on sexual and reproductive rights. This is something that you can see not only in Teen Star, but also in Embarazo Inesperado.cl, which again is a super neutral way to provide information. But then when the woman goes and contact them by the web chat or the hotline, the whole process is basically give information, conservative information around sexual and reproductive rights.
Yeah, it's interesting because even like you said with Fem, but other kind of natural fertility, natural family planning fertility apps, they're marketed as take control of your body, like it's anti-pharmaceutical industry,
Absolutely.
borderline, like you said, feminist language. So it is quite deceptive.
Yes, and I think you can see that because of the Privacy International research, you can see that this is a strategy that is super common in different countries. So you can still thinking that there's a super I don't know, super people is taking this strategy very carefully, so there's, I would say, even there's a central way to think about the conservative organizations, and I think here organizations as PRI, Citizen Go, etc., even Heartbeats International are playing a fundamental role in many of our countries.
My last question for you actually is around what people are doing in the country to sort of expose and combat against this sort of thing.
In the case of feminist groups, I would say in the last 5 years, they have received a lot of attacks by conservatives organizations through internet. So you have the typical, troll attacks, but also some sort of hate speech. Some of them have been, hacked. Some of them have been whatever. A lot of attacks have been happened. So these attacks are being so big, and sometimes they are so scared about them that the feminist group started to research on who is behind these attacks. And this is interesting because they actually are now talking about about the ultra right agenda on the internet, which was, and for Privacy International, for our researchers working on the internet, this is something that is like, of course there is this kind of influence. But for women's organization, classical women's organization, this was not so clear, because internet is not their common field of work. They use internet, but they are not worried about internet. So now I would say that the last 5 years they are saying, oh my God, on internet they are winning the fight. It's clear that they have this kind of coordinated strategies, but they also are coordinating attacks. So what they're trying to do is actually understand who is behind that, and of course, what are the strategies that they're using, which is interesting because now feminist organizations and women's groups are working with digital security. They are trying to understand most how internet works, because they are finally seeing that here is, this is a big battlefield to win the discussion, to put your arguments through the public opinion. So I would say that there's more, interest from feminist group to understand more about this, which for me is great, because for years and years we were like, oh, please, this is important, and they didn't see, the importance of the internet in here. But now, yes, they are working on that. But again, I think we don't have the amount, the amount of resources as they have in terms to, to have a strategy, etc. But they also, they also are conservatives. They follow rules. They really are. They can do that. We are people from progressive sides, and we like to discuss, and we like to not agree about things. So it's very difficult to actually copy that kind of conservative behavior on the internet. And I would say that it's more important to seek novel ways to to confront that kind of discourse, to confront that kind of attacks in a progressive way, in a feminist way. And I think in the case of Chile, and I would say in the case of Latin America, that discussion is being made. And I think, I hope really that we can, understand very well the behavior behind the conservative organizations behind this, and basically to have a comprehensive response, on this. But I think the election of Bolsonaro, the election of Trump, these conservative people in Latin America started to make a process in feminist group to say, okay, this is something that we have to deal with it, and deal with it in a secure way, in a way that we can, understand on internet and technologies with digital security, with data protection, etc. So I think in a way there's a kind of reaction, but of course it's a reaction that that's gonna take time.
Oh, well, thank you so much for your time.